Anomalous energy signatures detected in Sector 9. Classification: impossible. Hexelforin's crystalline appendages shimmered with concern as the data flowed through the scout vessel's sensors. The planet before them, third from its unremarkable yellow star, should have been classified as uninhabitable by all conclave standards. Its temperature fluctuated wildly from freezing to scorching across its surface. Its atmosphere contained reactive oxygen, a corrosive element that had destroyed countless potential civilizations. Its gravity was punishing, its weather systems violent, its tectonic plates still actively colliding. Yet the instruments did not lie. The planet teemed with artificial structures, electromagnetic communications, and spacecraft in its immediate orbit. Krelvor, verify this data, Hexelforin ordered, his crystalline form pulsing with the blue light of scientific curiosity tinged with apprehension. The empathic security chief's tendrils extended toward the sensory array. Krelvor's species had evolved without sight, instead sensing emotional and energetic patterns directly. The readings are accurate, Ambassador. But there is something else, something I have never encountered. Before Hexelforin could request clarification, proximity alarms blared. Their vessel shuddered violently as it passed through the system's surprisingly dense asteroid belt. A cascading failure rippled through their shields, and emergency lighting bathed the bridge in pulsing crimson. Hull integrity compromised in sections 3 through 7. The ship's AI announced with characteristic conclave calm. Projected survival probability: declining. Aboard the Earth Defense Outpost Artemis, Captain Eliza Chen stared at her display in disbelief. Sir, the object has altered course. It appears to be a ship, and it's in trouble. Admiral Hastings frowned at the readout. First contact protocols are clear, Captain. We observe only until Central Command authorizes engagement. Chen's jaw tightened as she watched the vessel's erratic trajectory. Debris from the asteroid impact had damaged its propulsion systems. At its current vector, it would be drawn into Jupiter's gravity well within hours. With respect, sir, if that's a crude vessel, they'll be dead long before Central makes a decision. She made her choice in that moment, one that would alter humanity's cosmic destiny. Prepare Rescue Team Alpha. Emergency vacuum protocols. I'll take full responsibility. 30 minutes later, Chen's team approached the alien vessel in their rescue shuttle. The craft was unlike anything human eyes had seen. A geometric impossibility of crystalline structures and flowing metal that seemed to defy structural engineering. Inside that impossible vessel, Hexelforin and his crew watched in horrified fascination as primitive craft approached them. More shocking still were the beings that emerged, bipedal creatures in what appeared to be woefully inadequate protective gear, exposing themselves to the vacuum with only thin suits and helmets. They're using their bodies as anchors, whispered the navigation officer as the humans attached emergency tethers with nothing but their own strength. They're risking cellular rupture to save us. Krelvor's tendrils writhed in distress. Ambassador, I am receiving emotional patterns from these beings. They are impossible, contradictory. Their fear is acute, yet they move toward danger rather than away. They experience concern for us. Complete strangers, equal to concern for themselves. The creatures communicated through primitive radio waves, their language rough and percussive. When the translation matrix finally decoded their transmissions, the first human words the Conclave ever received were startlingly direct. Alien vessel, hold position. We're getting you out of this mess. Just don't make any sudden moves, and we'll all get home in one piece. 6 months later, when the formal first contact ceremony finally occurred in Geneva, Hexelforin's diplomatic team had already formed their initial assessment of humanity. As crowds gathered below their landing vessel, displaying emotional responses ranging from religious ecstasy to open weeping to aggressive protectiveness, the security chief sent a private communication to the Conclave High Council. These humans move like no species we have encountered. Their eyes constantly track movement. Their postures betray readiness to attack or defend at any moment. Yet they smile and extend hands in welcome. Most concerning, when facing death, they became more focused, not less. I believe we have discovered something long thought extinct in our galaxy, a predator species that achieved spaceflight without self-destruction. The luminary ship descended through Earth's corrosive atmosphere toward the waiting humans, who stood tall against their punishing gravity, their eyes gleaming with the unmistakable look of hunters who had just discovered new horizons. Commander Elena Vasquez stood motionless before the memorial wall, her reflection ghosting across the polished obsidian surface, etched with thousands of names. Her fingers brushed against two particular inscriptions, Marco Vasquez and Sofia Vasquez, casualties of the South American resource wars. They had died securing an evacuation route for civilians when Elena was only 13, the day she decided to follow their path of service. "Commander, your transport is ready." Lieutenant Jackson's voice pulled her from the memory. "Thank you, Lieutenant. Our hosts are already impatient, I imagine." She straightened her uniform, the silver blue of Earth's newly created Diplomatic Defense Corps. The selection committee had been explicit about why she'd been chosen to lead humanity's first delegation to the Galactic Conclave. Her psychological profile showed an unusual combination of traits, ruthless tactical thinking paired with an almost pathological drive to protect others. The perfect representative of humanity's contradictions, they'd said. Aboard the luminary vessel Celestial Harmony, Elena immediately noticed the subtle reinforcement of their quarters compared to other areas she'd glimpsed during their tour. The walls were thicker, the fixtures more securely fastened, the environmental controls isolated from the main system. "They've put us in a cage," Lieutenant Jackson whispered on their third day, after he'd managed to access a maintenance terminal using linguistic algorithms to break the alien command codes. "Look at these schematics. Triple redundant containment systems, emergency weapons platforms built into the walls, atmospheric scrubbers designed to deploy sedative compounds." Dr. Yamamoto nodded thoughtfully. "They fear us. The question is, why?" They received their answer 7 days into the journey when alarms blared throughout the ship. Elena was awakened by the rhythmic pulsing of crimson light and an announcement in the musical language of the luminary. "Pirates," translated security specialist Maya Rodriguez, her hand already reaching for a weapon that had been confiscated upon boarding. Apparently rare in conclave space, but not unheard of. The four humans exchanged glances as they felt the ship shudder under impact. Through the viewing portal, they saw a sleek, predatory vessel with irregular protrusions that must be weapons arrays. When their luminary liaison, Devorin, nervously approached their quarters, Elena already knew what the crystalline being would ask. The crew is not prepared for this eventuality. Devorin's translation matrix struggled to convey the concept politely. "Our species evolved for cooperation, not confrontation. You need our help," Elena stated flatly. "But you're afraid to arm us." Another impact rocked the ship. Devorin's crystalline form vibrated with distress frequencies. "They've breached the outer hull. They seek the new species, you. There are rumors about Earth throughout trading outposts. Some believe humans possess valuable biological properties." Elena's decision was immediate. "Take us to your weapons storage. Now." The pirates, methane-breathing giants with 4 arms and mottled blue skin, clearly expected no resistance from a luminary diplomatic vessel. They were unprepared for what greeted them at the junction of corridors C and D. Maya Rodriguez moved like liquid shadow, her combat reflexes honed in Earth's orbital defense programs. She disabled 2 pirates before they registered her presence. Lieutenant Jackson deployed sonic disruptors with mathematical precision, exploiting weaknesses in the pirates' environmental suits that the luminary would never have identified. But it was Elena who truly shocked their hosts. One moment, she was a calm diplomat discussing options. The next, she became something else entirely, a focused predator whose movements seemed to blur with speed and efficiency. She coordinated the defense with hand signals and short, sharp commands that her team interpreted instantly, as if they shared a hive mind. When the last pirate fell unconscious rather than dead, Alina had insisted on non-lethal tactics despite greater risk to themselves. The Luminary crew stared at the humans with newfound understanding and deepened fear. Dr. Yamamoto was summoned to treat an injured Luminary crew member. Without thinking, he tore a strip of fabric with his teeth to create a pressure bandage. The entire medical bay fell silent, eyes fixed on his exposed incisors. Omnivore teeth, predator teeth, suddenly reminding everyone that these diplomatic humans were something altogether different from the peaceful species of the Conclave. "We're almost to the Conclave station," Elena told her team that night. "And I have a feeling the real tests haven't even begun." The Conclave station hung in space like an artificial solar system, a massive central sphere surrounded by orbiting modules connected by crystalline bridges and pulsating energy tethers. As their transport approached, Alina pressed her palm against the viewport, taking in the impossible architecture that defied human engineering principles. "Beautiful," she murmured. "And utterly alien," added Dr. Yamamoto, joining her. "Notice the biological components integrated with the mechanical. Some sections appear to be growing rather than constructed." Their luminary guide, Duvorin, vibrated with pride. The Grand Conclave Station houses representatives from 317 species, each requiring different atmospheric conditions, gravitational fields, and nutritional sources. The diplomatic niceties ended the moment they docked. Instead of the grand welcoming ceremony promised in their briefing materials, the human delegation was escorted through service corridors to a remote wing labeled Special Biological Containment. "This is our acclimation chamber," Lieutenant Jackson asked, voice dripping with sarcasm as they surveyed the reinforced walls and medical monitoring equipment disguised as ambient lighting. "For your comfort and safety," the luminary diplomatic attaché assured them unconvincingly. "You will be presented to the classification committee tomorrow after completing standard protocols." The standard protocols began at dawn station time, a series of seemingly innocent activities that Elena immediately recognized as tests. Physical exercises disguised as cultural exchanges, mathematical problems embedded in translation exercises, ethical dilemmas posed as historical discussions. On the third day, security specialist Maya Rodriguez discovered hidden observation devices in their quarters, sophisticated sensors monitoring everything from their respiration to their neurochemical fluctuations. "They're studying us like lab specimens," she whispered during their nightly security meeting, held in the sonic shower where the water flow masked their voices. Elena nodded grimly. "Time we did some studying of our own." "Maya, create a diversion tomorrow during the cultural exchange. Something flashy but harmless." "Jackson, be ready to exploit any network vulnerabilities. Dr. Yamamoto and I will find answers." The next day, while Maya captivated their observers with an impromptu demonstration of human martial arts forms, Alina and Yamamoto slipped away through maintenance access points Jackson had identified in the station schematics. The xenobiology archives were exactly where Jackson's hastily decoded map indicated. Using override codes extracted from the station's own security system, they gained access to a vast chamber where holographic data swirled in complex patterns. At the center of the room, spindly aliens with translucent skin argued in hushed tones. Alina and Yamamoto concealed themselves behind a data column, activating the portable translator Jackson had programmed. "Cannot be classified using existing parameters," one alien was saying, its circulatory fluids visibly pulsing with agitation. "They display characteristics across multiple categories." "The implications are disturbing," replied another. "Their physical capabilities alone would place them in prohibited classification, but combined with their cognitive profile and social structures, we must inform the High Council. If they truly evolved on a Category 5 death world, as the preliminary data suggests." Elena and Yamamoto exchanged alarmed glances. Death world. When the aliens departed, They approached the central console. Dr. Yamamoto's xenobiology credentials, while Earth-based, were similar enough to fool the system into granting limited access. What they discovered shook them to their core. The Conclave's entire taxonomy of sentient life was built around three categories of civilization-compatible species: nurturers, plant-based or symbiotic species that evolved through mutual support systems rather than competition. Their civilizations were built on resource sharing and slow, sustainable growth. Harmonizers, hive mind or collective consciousness species that experienced reality as a shared mental construct. Their technologies focused on communication and consciousness elevation. Builders, methodical, slow-evolving technological species that developed through careful incremental advancement over millions of years. And then there was the fourth classification: predators, species that evolved through competition, consumption of other life forms, and conflict. According to Conclave records, no predator species had ever achieved stable spacefaring civilization without self-destruction. Until humans. A classified addendum appeared as Yamamoto delved deeper. Human neurochemical analysis shows disturbing similarities to the extinct Cairnvex predators. Aggression responses activated by threat stimuli exceed safe parameters by 78%. Recommend containment protocols and continued observation. Note: subject species displays unprecedented capacity for both extreme violence and cooperative behavior within the same individuals, possible result of Category 5 Death World evolutionary pressures. Dr. Yamamoto, Commander Vasquez. They whirled to find a young alien with iridescent skin standing in the doorway. The nameplate on its environment suit read Vossirin, Xenobiology Research Division. "Please," the alien said softly, "you must leave immediately. The security protocols will reset in 40 seconds. A pause then. "And, not everyone here fears what you are. Some of us believe you might be exactly what the galaxy needs. The judgment of new species is an ancient tradition," Ambassador XL Foreign explained, his crystalline form pulsing with what might have been regret. "The classification committee has invoked it only 17 times in our recorded history." Elena stood rigidly before the Conclave's inner council, her team arrayed behind her. The circular chamber soared hundreds of meters upward, its tiers filled with representatives of countless species watching the proceedings with multifaceted eyes, sensory tendrils, and organs humans had no names for. "We did not agree to any judgment," Elena replied evenly. "We came as diplomatic representatives of Earth." Grand Arbiter Zovex, a massive tentacle being whose age was measured in millennia, leaned forward. When he spoke, his translator rendered his voice as deep and resonant. "All species are judged, Commander Vasquez. Most simply do not know it. Your case is unusual enough to require formal proceedings." Before Elena could respond, force fields shimmered around each human, separating them from one another. Panic flashed across Lieutenant Jackson's face before training reasserted itself. Dr. Yamamoto remained outwardly calm, though his eyes darted between the conclave officials, analyzing. Maya Rodriguez immediately dropped into a combat stance, her hands searching for weapons that weren't there. "What is the meaning of this?" Elena demanded, fighting against her own instinctive response to attack the nearest threat. "The judgment requires direct observation of responses to controlled stimuli," Zovex explained impassively. "Your delegation will be returned to Earth unharmed, regardless of outcome. This is merely information gathering." The force fields transported each human to a different location. Elena found herself in a sterile white chamber, alone except for monitoring devices. For 6 hours, nothing happened. No food, no water, no communication. She recognized the tactic: sensory deprivation followed by sudden stimulus, designed to provoke unfiltered responses. Meanwhile, Maya Rodriguez and 2 other delegates were thrust into the chamber of choice. Flames erupted from hidden vents, quickly spreading across the floor toward what appeared to be alien children huddled in a corner. A clear path to an exit remained open behind the humans, while reaching the children would require crossing through intensifying fire. Without hesitation, Maya shouted to her companions, "I'll go high, you go low." They moved as one, charging toward the flames rather than away. Maya used her jacket as a shield, suffering severe burns as she gathered two small aliens into her arms. Her companions did the same, their skin blistering as they fought through the fire. Only when all the children were safely extracted did Maya allow herself to collapse from pain, her hands and arms covered in wounds that would leave permanent scars. In another chamber, Dr. Yamamoto found himself sealed with 5 alien species as the environmental systems began to fail. Oxygen levels dropped precipitously. The aliens panicked, some curling into defensive postures, others becoming aggressive as survival instincts took over. Yamamoto's response was immediate and methodical. He identified which species could survive on less oxygen, organized a rotation system for the limited emergency respirators, and began modifying the ventilation system to extract oxygen from the decorative plants in the chamber. "Conserve energy," he instructed the others calmly, slowing his own breathing to demonstrate. Panic consumes oxygen faster. When a sudden pressure fluctuation caused debris to fall from the ceiling, Yamamoto didn't hesitate. He threw himself over a small alien child, using his body as a shield. The impact left him bleeding from a gash across his back, but his focus never wavered from keeping everyone alive. Alina's test came last. Her isolation ended when Ambassador Xel entered her chamber, then promptly collapsed, his crystalline form turning cloudy and opaque, signs of severe distress. "Help," he gasped. "Neural cascade. Failure." Alina rushed to his side, her anger at the situation immediately supplanted by concern. She had only fragmentary knowledge of luminary physiology from her briefings, but she recognized a terminal cascade when she saw one. Without proper medical equipment, she improvised, using techniques that would stabilize a human but might kill a luminary. The risk was enormous, but inaction meant certain death. Her hands moved with practiced precision despite the alien anatomy, applying pressure points and emergency field medicine adapted on the fly. As Xelforin's form began to stabilize, the chamber walls suddenly dissolved, revealing they were in the center of the conclave's great auditorium. Thousands of representatives watched in silence as Alina realized the truth. It had all been an elaborate simulation. She rose slowly, fury radiating from her in palpable waves. The Grand Arbiter floated down to the central platform, his massive form dwarfing her. "You believe we are monsters," Alina declared, her voice echoing through the chamber. "Because you've forgotten what it means to fight for survival. You test our capacity for violence while missing its purpose. We don't just destroy, we protect." The Grand Arbiter's skin flushed dark with what might have been emotion. "Your kind bears disturbing similarities to the Vexther, whose drive to expand and consume led to the Great Extinction. We must determine if you are predators who have temporarily learned restraint, or something genuinely new in our galaxy's history." Alina stepped forward, unintimidated by the ancient being towering above her. "Judge us by our actions, not your fears. We faced your tests with courage and compassion. What does that tell you about humanity's true nature?" The silence that followed was deafening. The human delegation's quarters had been upgraded following the trials, a tacit acknowledgement of their changed status. But the new accommodations came with enhanced security. Biometric scanners monitored their vital signs continuously. Armed guards, members of a gelatinous species capable of absorbing tremendous kinetic energy, stood at attention outside their doors. Honored guests or high-value prisoners. Lieutenant Jackson muttered as he swept the room for surveillance devices. "I can't tell the difference anymore." Alina sat cross-legged on the floor, reviewing the limited data they'd been permitted to access about the Conclave's history. "They fear us, but they're also fascinated. That combination rarely ends well." Dr. Yamamoto entered from his adjacent chamber, his expression uncharacteristically animated. "I found something," he whispered, producing a small crystalline object from his pocket. "Vossaren slipped this to me during today's medical examination. The data crystal, when activated through Jackson's jury-rigged interface, projected a holographic message showing the young alien scientist. What I am about to share violates multiple conclave secrecy protocols. Vosserin's projection began. But after witnessing your responses during the judgment, I believe you deserve to know the truth about our galaxy's history and the real reason for the conclave's fear. The message dissolved, replaced by historical archives so ancient that portions had degraded beyond recovery. What remained showed horrors beyond imagination. Planets reduced to molten slag, entire star systems engulfed by weaponized singularities, species exterminated down to the last cellular structure. The Great Cleansing, the archive labeled it. 50 million years ago, multiple predator species, including the reptilian Cairnvex and the insectoid Scythers, had achieved interstellar travel nearly simultaneously. Their competition for resources escalated rapidly from colonial disputes to total war. Billions died as increasingly destructive weapons were deployed across thousands of star systems. The few surviving species, ancestors of today's conclave members, had made a collective decision that would shape galactic civilization for millennia to come. They engineered their own genetic codes, systematically removing the aggressive traits they believed had led to catastrophe. Over generations, they transformed themselves into beings incapable of the violence that had nearly destroyed the galaxy. These are the forbidden archives. Vosserin's narration continued. Most conclave citizens know only sanitized versions of our history. Few understand that we deliberately sacrificed parts of ourselves that we deemed too dangerous. The hologram shifted to display detailed xenobiological comparisons between human neurochemistry and recovered samples from extinct predator species. The similarities were undeniable. Brain structures associated with territorial defense, aggression responses, and predatory instincts matched with startling precision. But there were anomalies that clearly fascinated Vosserin's research team. Humans showed unusually developed neural pathways connecting these predatory centers to regions associated with empathy, cooperative planning, and abstract ethical reasoning. Your species is unique in our records, Vosserin explained. A predator species that developed powerful cooperative instincts and empathy extending beyond kin groups. Your capacity for both extreme violence and extreme altruism, often exhibited by the same individual in different contexts, terrifies the conclave leadership because they cannot predict it. They cannot understand how creatures evolved for competition could choose cooperation without genetic manipulation. The final segment of the archive activated automatically, bypassing Jackson's security measures. It showed a classified recording of an emergency conclave council meeting occurring simultaneously with the human delegation's confinement. High Counselor Nealcor, a severe-looking being with silvery skin stretched over an elongated skull, addressed the assembly. The evidence is conclusive. These humans cannot be allowed unrestricted access to conclave technology or star charts. Their biological imperative to expand and consume resources will inevitably lead to conflict. I move that we implement the Purifier Protocol while we still can. The recording ended abruptly as station-wide alarms began to wail. The lights in the human quarters flickered and died, replaced by dim emergency illumination. Gravity fluctuated wildly before stabilizing at about half Earth normal. "That can't be good," Jackson said unnecessarily. The door slid open with a hydraulic hiss, revealing Ambassador Excelforin with Vosserin and several other alien scientists. "There is no time," Excelforin said urgently. "The Purifier faction has seized control of the Conclave Council. They've convinced enough members that humanity cannot be allowed to spread beyond Earth." Alina was already moving, gathering essential equipment. "What's the Purifier Protocol?" Vosserin's translucent skin paled visibly. "Sterilization of potentially threatening species before they achieve widespread interstellar capability." "They're going to attack Earth," Alina realized, horror spreading through her. "We need to warn." "It's worse than that," Excelforin interrupted, activating a portable projector. It displayed a massive wave of distortion moving through space, consuming stars as it advanced. This is what they fear you discovering, the Void Tide. It has already destroyed 17 systems on the galactic rim. We engineered the aggression from our genes, Vossaren explained, voice trembling. But in doing so, we lost something essential, the capacity to face extinction and fight against impossible odds rather than accept them. You humans call it courage. We need predators again. We need you. 3 stealth vessels, HFY explained as they hurried through maintenance corridors, never meant for bipedal species, launched 17 hours ago toward your solar system. They carry quantum destabilizers designed to induce premature solar flares in your star. Alina's mind raced with calculations. Earth's defensive perimeter was still under construction, their ships equipped with technology barely a century beyond internal combustion. Against conclave weapons, they would be defenseless. We need to reach a quantum communicator, she said. Warn Earth. Vassarin's skin flickered with anxiety patterns. The purifiers control all long-range communication arrays. We need to reach Docking Bay 7. A research vessel with independent comm systems is preparing for atmospheric sampling. They turned a corner and froze. 20 purifier enforcers blocked the corridor, their neural disruptors humming with lethal energy. Behind them stood High Executor Nalcor, his silver skin reflecting the emergency lighting in rippling patterns. The human delegation is to be contained until the cleansing is complete, Nalcor announced, his translator rendering his voice with artificial calm. The others will be judged for their treason against the Conclave. What happened next would be recorded in Conclave historical archives as the first demonstration of human combat efficiency. Maya Rodriguez moved with such speed that the station's security systems could barely track her. She disabled 3 enforcers before they could activate their weapons, using their own momentum against them in a fluid demonstration of martial arts perfected on Earth. Lieutenant Jackson deployed a makeshift electromagnetic pulse device he'd assembled from components in their quarters, temporarily disabling the neural disruptors in a 5-meter radius. Dr. Yamamoto, the least combat-oriented of the group, nevertheless demonstrated the human instinct for survival, improvising a smoke screen using chemicals from his medical kit that obscured visual sensors. But it was Ambassador Xelthorin's action that truly shocked everyone present. As a neural disruptor beam targeted Alina, the luminary diplomat threw himself into its path. His crystalline form absorbed the full intensity of the weapon, shattering into thousands of glittering fragments that scattered across the deck. Go! Vossaren screamed, pulling Alina away from Xelthorin's remains. His consciousness will survive in the largest fragments, but only if his sacrifice means something. The group scattered in planned directions. Alina led half the purifiers away from their objective, drawing them into the labyrinthine storage areas. Dr. Yamamoto and Vossaren broke off toward the communication center, while Lieutenant Jackson and Maya headed for the navigation control to track the purifier vessels. Alina found herself cornered in a hydroponics bay, surrounded by exotic vegetation from 100 worlds. 3 purifier enforcers approached cautiously, having witnessed what happened to their colleagues. "You don't need to die today," Alina said quietly. "I have no quarrel with you." "Your existence is the quarrel," one replied. "You cannot understand what your kind represents to us. The evolutionary path you walk leads only to destruction." Alina's response was to grab a length of irrigation pipe, transforming it into a staff weapon with a few precise movements. What followed was a demonstration of why humans have been classified as predators, a blur of calculated violence, each strike measured to incapacitate rather than kill. Alina moved like the apex predator her species had evolved to be, anticipating attacks before they came, exploiting weaknesses no peaceful species would think to guard against. Across the station, Lieutenant Jackson and Maya infiltrated the navigation center, bypassing security through ventilation systems designed for maintenance drones. What they discovered confirmed their worst fears. The purifier vessels had a 2-day head start. "They'll reach Earth in 5 days," Jackson whispered, studying the projected course. Their weapons are designed to trigger precisely calibrated solar flares that will wash over Earth, Mars, and Venus simultaneously. Maya's face hardened. We need a ship, something fast enough to overtake them. A soft sound made them both spin, weapons ready. A small alien with feathery appendages cowered by the door, a navigation specialist from a species known for their quantum calculation abilities. The Arbiter's personal vessel, the alien whispered, sliding a data crystal toward them. Docking Bay 3. Fastest ship in the Conclave fleet. I saw the trial. How the human female ran into fire to save children who weren't her own. The purifiers are wrong about you. Meanwhile, Dr. Yamamoto and Vaserin fought their way to the quantum communication array, only to find it physically disconnected from power. We need to reach the others, Yamamoto said grimly. Our only hope now is to intercept those ships before they reach Earth. When the fractured groups finally reunited at Docking Bay 3, they were bloody but unbowed. The Arbiter's personal vessel, sleek and powerful, with engines unlike anything humans had seen, waited before them. As they prepared to board, a private communication channel activated on Alina's borrowed conclave device. Nalkor's face appeared, his silver features set in what might have been regret. I have studied your species extensively, Commander, he said softly. I have seen how your history repeats itself, periods of peace followed inevitably by war. Your capacity for violence cannot be contained forever. The galaxy has seen your kind before. Alina's response was simple. You've studied our capacity for violence but ignored our capacity for sacrifice. That's why you'll lose this fight. The communication ended as alarms blared throughout the station. The hunt had begun. Humanity's first desperate race to save their homeworld from extinction. Their only allies a handful of aliens who believed predators might be what the galaxy needed after all. The Arbiter's vessel, Celestial Judgment, cut through hyperspace like a blade through water. Designed for the Conclave's highest officials, its technology surpassed anything humanity had developed by centuries. Yet even this marvel of engineering struggled against the laws of physics and the lead time the purifier ships maintained. We're gaining, but not quickly enough, Vaserin announced, her translucent fingers manipulating the navigation display. We'll intercept them only after they've entered your solar system. Alina studied the tactical projections, her mind calculating probabilities in the way that had made her Earth's foremost combat strategist. The ship's AI keeps rejecting our proposed course corrections. Why? Peacekeeping protocols, explained the small navigation specialist who had joined their escape. His name was Tiktra, a member of the mathematically gifted Quantary. The vessel is programmed to reject any course that exceeds a certain risk threshold or could lead to conflict. Dr. Yamamoto looked up from the medical bay where he was treating Maya's injuries. Can we override it? Vaserin hesitated. The AI is partially organic. It's not just programmed. It's conditioned to preserve life above all other considerations. Then we need to convince it, Alina said, that our mission preserves more life than it risks. Vaserin connected directly to the ship's neural interface, a painful process for a being not designed for such integration. Through this connection, she showed the AI the classified records of the approaching void tide and the purifier's plan to eliminate humanity, the one species that might have the psychological capacity to confront such an existential threat. The ship shuddered as if alive, lights flickering as its artificial/organic mind processed this ethical dilemma. Then, abruptly, the engine surged with new power. The Celestial Judgment accelerated beyond its supposed limitations, its AI having reached the inescapable conclusion that humanity's survival was essential for the galaxy. They emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system to find chaos already unfolding. The purifier vessels had taken position near Jupiter, preparing their weapons for the precisely calculated solar flare that would sterilize Earth. Earth's defensive fleet, a hastily assembled array of military ships and repurposed civilian vessels, had moved to intercept, but they were hopelessly outmatched by conclave technology. Admiral Chen's flagship Armstrong led the desperate defense, coordinating Earth's forces with remarkable tactical acumen despite the technological disadvantage. "They've detected us," Lieutenant Jackson reported as warning signals flashed across the command console. "One purifier vessel is breaking off to intercept." "Open a channel to the Armstrong," Elena ordered. When Admiral Chen's face appeared on screen, exhausted but determined, Elena quickly explained the purifier's vulnerabilities. Their shields can deflect energy weapons with 99% efficiency, but become temporarily unstable when impacted by multiple solid objects simultaneously. Admiral Chen's eyes narrowed with understanding. "So we hit them with everything at once. And I mean everything." What followed would be remembered in human history as the Battle of Jupiter, where humanity's unique evolution as both predators and cooperators was fully unleashed. Admiral Chen implemented a strategy that horrified the watching conclave observers, deliberately sacrificing smaller vessels in coordinated kamikaze runs that created shield disruptions. The human pilots volunteered for these near-suicidal missions, displaying the incomprehensible willingness to sacrifice individual survival for group success. "They're using single-occupant fighters as projectiles," Vossaren whispered in disbelief, "knowing they will die." "No," Elena corrected grimly, "knowing others will live." Meanwhile, Elena led a smaller team including Maya and Dr. Yamamoto in a stealth insertion aboard the Purifier command ship, the Celestial Judgment's advanced cloaking technology, and the Purifier's focus on the main Earth fleet allowed them to dock undetected at an emergency access port. In the zero-gravity corridors of the Purifier vessel, the human team's evolutionary history as pursuit predators became terrifyingly apparent. They moved with an efficiency no conclave security system was designed to counter, systematically disabling weapon systems as they fought their way toward the command center. "They're adapting to our tactics," Maya reported as a security team nearly intercepted them. "Learning our patterns. Then we'll be unpredictable," Elena replied. "Humans excel at that." The critical moment came when they reached the auxiliary weapons control room. Protected by a neural security field calibrated to incapacitate any being with aggressive intent, it seemed impenetrable. Dr. Yamamoto stepped forward. "Let me try. My intent isn't aggression, it's protection." Remarkably, the field allowed him passage. The Conclave's security systems, designed by peace-evolved species, had never encountered the human concept of aggressive protection, the predatory instinct redirected toward saving rather than taking lives. As Yamamoto disabled the quantum destabilizers, Maya confronted High Executor Nulkor in the adjacent command center. The Purifier leader, desperate to complete his mission, unleashed a neural disruptor designed to trigger uncontrollable aggression in predator brains. Maya fell to her knees, face contorted as the weapon stimulated the most primitive parts of her brain. The ancient predator instinct to kill without restraint. Through sheer force of will and training, she fought through the artificially induced rage, her human capacity for self-control allowing her to resist long enough to disable the weapon. "Impossible," Nulkor whispered as she rose, bloody but in control. "No predator species has ever." "We're not just predators," Maya gasped, her voice raw with effort. "That's what you never understood." 3 months after the Battle of Jupiter, the Conclave Grand Chamber, a vast amphitheater containing representatives from over 300 species, fell silent as Commander Elena Vasquez took the central platform. The scars on her face from the battle had barely healed, a visible reminder of what had been won and lost. Behind her stood her team alongside Admiral Chen and the captured Purifier leader Nulkor, now a reluctant witness. The ancient arbiter Zovex floated above his ceremonial days, tentacles rippling with shades of blue that indicated deep contemplation. When he spoke, his voice resonated throughout the chamber. "We gather to determine humanity's place in the galactic order. Never before has a species classified as predator achieved interstellar capability without self-destruction. Never before has the judgment of new species yielded such contradictory results. Elena stepped into the circle of the ancient truth field, a technology that rendered deception impossible. Its golden light enveloped her as she began humanity's defense. Honored species of the Conclave, she began, I will not deny what we are. With those words, she activated a holographic display showing Earth's brutal evolutionary history without apology. Ice ages, extinctions, predator-prey cycles, warfare, and devastation. The assembled aliens watched in uncomfortable silence as humanity's blood-soaked rise was displayed in unflinching detail. Tribal conflicts, world wars, genocide, ecological destruction. This is our history, Elena acknowledged. We evolved as predators on a world that demanded it. We fought, killed, and conquered. But that is only part of our story. The display shifted, showing something the Conclave had never considered possible, a predator species that deliberately chose to constrain its own violent nature through law, ethics, and civilization. The historical record revealed humanity's slow, painful journey toward controlling its darkest impulses, the development of ethical philosophies, systems of justice, declarations of universal rights, and ultimately, global cooperation. We remain predators, Elena declared, her voice strong in the perfect acoustics of the chamber. But we have learned to hunt for knowledge instead of flesh, to compete through creation rather than destruction, to protect rather than simply kill. We didn't evolve beyond our nature. We transcended it while embracing it. Dr. Yamamoto stepped forward next, presenting the neurobiological evidence. His scans showed how human brains had developed unique neural pathways, connecting predatory centers to regions controlling empathy and ethical reasoning, biology and culture evolving together towards something unprecedented. As he concluded, the crystalline archivists, silicon-based entities older than most conclave civilizations, floated forward, their multifaceted forms shimmering with internal light. The eldest among them, a being said to remember the ancient predator wars firsthand, positioned herself before the assembly. We have withheld certain knowledge from the conclave. The archivist's translation matrix rendered in a voice like chiming crystals. The approaching void tide is not a natural phenomenon, but the return of the devourers, non-corporeal predator entities we believe destroyed in the ancient wars. Gasps and telepathic bursts of shock rippled through the chamber. The peace-evolved conclave species lack both the neurological capacity to comprehend such an enemy and the instinctual drives needed to combat it. We have known this truth for millennia, waiting for a species that could face this threat without becoming it. With ceremonial gravity, the archivist extended crystalline appendages toward Elena. Today, we create a new classification in our taxonomy. Guardian species, evolved predators who have harnessed their aggressive instincts for protection rather than domination. Humanity becomes the first and only living species to bear this designation. The silence that followed was profound, broken finally by Nalcor, the purifier leader. I have studied your history more thoroughly now, he admitted reluctantly, the truth field compelling honesty. Your species still terrifies me. But I have witnessed your restraint when you could have destroyed us. I have seen your warriors sacrifice themselves not for glory, but for strangers. Perhaps we were wrong about what predators can become. 2 weeks later, Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned Guardian, Earth's first true interstellar warship built with adapted conclave technology. Beside her stood representatives from 7 of the younger, more adaptable conclave species who had volunteered to join what was now called the Guardian Fleet. Their mission: interception of the advancing void tide. Dr. Yamamoto had discovered that the supposedly non-corporeal devourers operated according to comprehensible predator-prey dynamics that only human minds could fully grasp. The human capacity to understand predation while choosing protection had become the galaxy's salvation. As the fleet prepared to depart, Elena stood at the command center alongside Vossaren, whose research into human psychology had helped convince the conclave of humanity's unique value. Your species still terrifies many in the conclave, Vossaren admitted. Good, Elena replied, securing her combat harness. That's what makes us effective guardians. We know exactly how dangerous we could become, and we choose a different path every day. On Earth, in a sunlit classroom overlooking the new Conclave Embassy, human children sat alongside alien youngsters from a dozen worlds. Their education emphasized both the responsibilities and dangers of their unique evolutionary heritage. Above them, visible through the transparent ceiling, new ships bearing the Guardian insignia streaked toward the stars. Humanity unleashed, but as protectors rather than conquerors, their predatory essence finally understood for what it truly represented: the capacity to face darkness rather than flee from it. In the vastness of space, predators once more moved among the stars, but this time they hunted not for conquest, but for the preservation of all life. Guardians at last of the galaxy that had once feared them.